In this week's video, I'm doing a multitude of different things, but for the most part, it's going to be getting the bike running, doing some final tune-up on it. I ended up finding an issue with my front brake, and I'll kind of go into some detail on that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I go over this week. Just getting most of the bike buttoned up. You can see it's pretty much put together. So the only thing I'm still working on is the front brake. It was ended up being really rusted inside. So I'm actually soaking the front caliper with the piston and everything in some Evapo rust now. I did order a new seal, and it won't be here for a couple of days. So I'm going to replace that. But other than that, it's pretty much getting everything wrapped up. So yeah, enjoy the video and stick through to the end. And what I'm working on right now is the mounts for that universal speedometer that I got. So where I want to mount it is right here off of these two tabs here, and as low as possible. So it'll be kind of down just about like that, so I can still get the wiring through. I can still get the speedo cable up right behind the headlight there. So what I decided to do was cut apart some factory turn signals and have a little bar drop off the bottom of this bracket, and then have a 90-degree off of it into the mounts on the speedometer. And there's just going to be a nice bolt. I'll just get a bolt that kind of matches these. That'll go straight through here and kind of mount to the bottom. So it'll just be two bolts on the top in these holes, and then the speedometer will be perfect right in the middle. So this is the bracket right here that I have. So what I did is just cut this part off of a stock mount for a turn signal. So these, you can kind of see I already have that one on. I haven't finished welded them yet, but to give you an idea of what it's going to look like. So that gets mounted on like that, and then this bracket will actually be bolted through that hole right to there. So I'll paint these black when they're finished welded and ground down. So it'll just be a little black bar kind of coming down from there, and then those little tabs will actually go into the mount on the back of the speedometer. So that's how I'm mounting my Speedo. Just got two of these together, so just tacked right now. I'm going to finish weld them, then paint them black, and you won't even be able to see them. So it's working out pretty well. Have all the wiring and everything put into the headlight, so it's all kind of final mounted. I went ahead and threw the controls on permanently with the grips. Have the throttle, haven't permanently mounted that yet just because I don't have the cables in it, but I threw the front brake on too. You can see I mounted the speedometer. This isn't my permanent, but just to kind of hold it there until I get a nice looking bolt to go through, kind of show you guys the mounts I was talking about that I made in there. So there'll be a nice looking bolt through here on both sides. Still have access to the tripometer reset, so you can kind of see it's a lot cleaner speedometer than if you saw my other video where the stock one, not even exaggerating, it's stuck up about this far. So that looks a lot cleaner of an install. I'm really happy with it. And then I turn my key on. Oh, got my signal on. All my lights work. So you see obviously the oil pressure because it's not on. Neutral switch works. Turn signals. Turn signals on that side. So looks pretty good. Got my tail light, and then when I hit the brake, oh, I have that one disconnected. You can see it gets a little brighter. What I may do is run like a resistor in there. I'm trying to figure it out because it's kind of bright normally, and then it gets like a little bit brighter when the brakes are on. I'd rather it be a little bit dimmer normally and then be pretty obvious when you're hitting the brakes, for obvious reasons. Low beams, high beam indicator works. So yeah, everything works. Everything's pretty much put together. So at this point, I can start to work on the rear brake. So what I'm doing there is, when I got it together, I figured out even when I push the pedal as far as it'll go, it doesn't actually engage the brake at all. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do is pull this whole rear wheel off again and check out inside of the drum and see if something got messed up, or a shoe got kind of stuck, or I don't know. I'm gonna kind of take it apart and see if anything looks kind of out of place or something like that, so I can figure out why that isn't working. Once I'm done with that, then I'll be ready to put the carbs on, put the exhaust on, and then we're going to try to start it. So I'm hoping to do that. I don't know that I'll get to that tonight, but definitely this week, so it will be in this video of the at least attempt and hopeful success of the first start of the bike. So you can kind of see it's coming together. No big issues so far, and yeah, so I'm going to get to work on that rear brake, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I've got the rear brake fixed, so what I'm going to go ahead and do now is throw on the exhaust. Now if I'm done throwing on the exhaust, then I can go ahead and throw on the carbs as well. So with the exhaust, it's pretty easy. So there's going to be these little copper gaskets that are going to go in each exhaust port, and then we're going to have the actual exhaust pipe, and then I'll show you how the flange works as well. So let me go ahead and grab those copper gaskets, and I'll throw them in there, and then I'll show you how the flanges work. Alright, I got the copper gaskets right here. So these are designed to crush in there and create the seal. So what you can do is just throw them all in there. They should pretty much stay in place. And of course, make sure you clean out your old ones. Sometimes they can be pretty smashed in there if they have been sitting in there for years and years, and they take a little bit of prying out with the little flathead screwdriver, or something like that can generally get it out. Let's throw in this last one. All right. So we got them in there, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the exhaust pipe and then show you how the flanges work, because there's a couple of different pieces that kind of have to work together to make it work. So I'll go grab that stuff right now. Okay, hopefully you guys can see this. I'm trying to get the best angle I can. So we have our little copper gaskets in each port. You can see on the end of each pipe there's a little flange, or like a little lip that comes up. These are what the exhaust actual flanges look like. So there's the main part here, then there's two little kind of spacers right here. So basically what happens is this goes in up against that copper gasket we put in. These go on each side of this, up against that flange part, and then this goes on the back. So before you put it up there, you'll put this part on, then you'll put each one of these around the pipe, and then kind of pushes on like that. So these just act as a spacer to kind of get in there. You have two holes on this flange that line up with these two studs, and then you got little nuts on each side. So that's kind of how it works. So little flange on the end of there. These two, make sure to put all four of these around the exhaust pipes before you put it up against the head, because obviously you can't get it on there afterwards. So put all these on there, and this can be a little bit fiddly, at least on some bikes. It seems like it fights you and some it doesn't, but put them all on there. You can put these on, once you get it kind of up into place, wrap it around, sandwich the pipe in there, then you can seat this up, make sure your studs go through your two mounting holes, and then get them all. I like to kind of finger tighten the nuts on here before I get them all on. Once you get them all on, you can start to kind of tighten them down. So I'm going to go ahead and see how hard this one's going to fight me. Hopefully not too bad. Yeah, so that's how these work. Alright, today's project is going to be to put the carbs on. So they should be ready to go. I did rejet them already. So they have 110 jets in them now. That's because I'm going to be using the pod filters on there. So I think we're ready to go ahead and throw them on. I did go ahead and put the spark plugs in, connected the spark plug wires, got the exhaust all done. So I should be ready to put the carbs on, and then in theory, spray a little bit of starting fluid down the carbs and see if it'll turn over. So hopefully, if all goes well, this afternoon should be the first time I'll hear this bike run, assuming we don't have any major issues. So yeah, we'll go ahead and throw the carbs on now, and then we will kind of double check everything once again, and then see if we can't get some fire out of it. Alright, moment of truth. I'm going to go ahead and start it up, or attempt to start it up for the first time. So this is a legitimate first start, first time I'll ever hear this bike hopefully run. So we'll see what happens. Looks like my battery's dead, so I'm gonna have to hook it up to the charger. Alright, attempt number 2 with a battery that's got a little bit more charge on it. Good Sweet. So she runs. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and get any old gas out of the tank, and then put some fresh gas, not a whole lot, but some fresh gas into the tank, and then we'll see if we can get it running and to stay running while it's actually got just a normal flow of gas. Alright, we definitely have some fuel leaks. I just kept the dry rotted factory, or the ones that came on the carb fuel lines, so I should have replaced those anyway, but I was getting a little antsy and wanted to fire it up. But yeah, I'll kind of show you kind of how it's going now. So I can only turn the fuel on for a second to get a little bit of fuel in the bowls, but just to show you kind of where we're at. Obviously a lot of tuning to do, and a lot of fixing the fuel lines, and I actually have to put the pod filters on, then I can start to tune it. I still have to sync the carbs, and I have a vacuum kit to do that. So a lot to do, but that's a really good sign. Now I know the motor runs, it's got good compression, carbs are working well, so now I can just kind of work on those leaks and then start to do some fine tuning and go from there. So it's pretty awesome. I'm very excited to hear it run, and now it's one less thing I have to worry about. So all the rest of it's little stuff. So very cool. Hey guys, I wanted to kind of give you an update of where I'm at right now. I had the leak from the carbs, so when I hooked it up and actually turned on the petcock, there was some gas leaking out, so I figured out where it was coming from. So I just took apart the carbs and pulled this side out. There's two fuel lines on a 550, and you can see right in here, this is where the fuel line tees off. It goes into each side of the carb, and there's two O-rings on each side of this, and these O-rings are really old and brittle. So what I'm going to do is replace those. This side wasn't really leaking, but since I have it taken apart, I may just go ahead and replace those anyway. I got one of these O-ring assortments, and I know somebody will probably give me some crap about doing the Harbor Freight thing, but I actually already had these, so I figured I'd try them. If they don't work, then I can go and get some Honda parts, but they're just little rubber O-rings, so they should be just fine in there. I'm sure they were just old. So yep, I'm gonna go ahead and pull those off and see if I can't find an exact match in this kit here, replace them, put it all back together, and then kind of bench test it and see if I'm having any leakage anymore. So yep, that's what I'm working on right now. Alright guys, I got the carb put back on, or carbs should I say, and I got the fuel on right now, and we have 0 leaks, which is pretty awesome. So the little O-rings in there worked out well. So what I'm going to do is go ahead, and I'm not going to run it for long since it is a little bit late and I don't want my neighbors to hate me, but I'm going to see if it'll start up on its own without having starter fluid, if it'll just start up as it should with just the carbs. So we got the choke on, ignition on. Let's make sure we're in neutral. Yep, neutral lights on. Let's see what happens. Well, that's a pretty damn good sign. A little bit of throttle here. I can't. Probably don't want to do much more than that, but that's pretty awesome. That fired up pretty darn easily. I'm actually really surprised that it even fired up that nice. So turn the fuel back off. So that's pretty pretty awesome. I'm excited about that. So next things I'm going to do, now that the carbs are kind of on and running, tomorrow when it's, you know, more during the day and it's not so late, I will get them fired up and adjust that idle up a little bit so that it'll stay running, and then just probably let it run for a while. Kind of, you know, it hasn't run in a couple of months at least, probably more like a year or two. So I'll just kind of let it run, kind of clean out some of that buildup, and then I'll go ahead and throw the pod filters on and then go and actually sink the carbs. So I have this carb sink tool here, so use that to sink them up and, you know, make sure they're kind of on the same, all on the same vacuum and everything, so that it's running right. So that's the plan. That's how it's gone so far. So pretty awesome. I'm waiting for a replacement clutch lever to come in because mine actually was broken, the one I ordered, and he's sending a replacement, so it should be here in the next few days. But here's kind of an update for you guys. So far so good. So yep, tomorrow we'll throw the pod filters on, and then we'll get to actually tuning the carbs. Came out here and decided to fire it up and see if I can't sink the carbs and kind of get everything going as far as the tune goes. I threw on the pod filters, so you can see pod filters are on. I went ahead and threw the seat on too, just to kind of have it pretty much complete looking. It's actually running really well before I even mess with sinking the carbs and everything. So I feel like once I hook up my gauges, the carbs are going to be pretty darn close to set right anyway. But the 110 jets seem to be doing really well. So I'll kind of fire it up and let you guys hear what it's running like now. For anyone who's curious, with pod filters on the 550, the choke cable gets in the way. So I don't know if you can tell with mine, I actually bent it out at like a 90-degree angle so that I can get a full rotation out of it. So that would be choke on, that's choke off. So we'll turn the fuel on, turn the key on. So you can see she already, I mean, that's no choke. I ran it for a minute or two already, but she's doing pretty darn well already. So I'm gonna hook up the carb sync tool just to kind of make sure it's perfectly dialed in. And I mean, hell, once my clutch lever gets here, which may actually be in the mailbox right now, in theory I'd be able to give it a little test drive around the neighborhood. I actually had to buy a new helmet because the person who bought my last bike wanted the helmet thrown in as a package deal. So I ordered a new Biltwell Gringo helmet, and it won't be here until like Monday or Tuesday. Today's Friday, so I won't be able to do any kind of long test rides or anything yet, but I may be able to just take it around the block and see how she goes. But so far so good. Hey, right, I'm doing an update now. Hopefully this sounds alright. I got a new external mic for my GoPro as well as a gimbal, so the shots should be a lot smoother now and not as kind of jumping around. So I was doing good until I discovered a problem. So, and this is kind of how it goes, but no big deal. You can see I have a lot of my wiring torn apart again. Basically what I found is I was going to set the ignition timing on the bike, and when the bike got warmed up, it would be running totally fine, and then it would slowly start to die. And I was trying to figure out what the issue was, because I was trying to sync the carbs, and I decided to check and make sure the charging system was working. When I checked it, it actually wasn't charging at all. So the battery was showing like 5 volts, the headlight was barely on. So I started to dive into what was the issue there, and I found the rectifier, which in hindsight I may have, you know, I probably should have upgraded to a more modern rectifier, and I may still do that. But basically what I found on my rectifier is the ground wire was completely melted. Here's the actual connector right here, if you can see that. It was completely melted, so it was no longer making a ground whatsoever. And then actually the power wire, or the red wire, I'm not sure if it's power or not, but the red wire that runs to the starting solenoid, the wire is actually completely destroyed as well. So that could be, hopefully that's the reason why my charging system isn't working. That certainly would make sense to why it would have an issue. So what I'm going to do is, these really aren't designed for replacing these wires. There's actually a rivet that goes right through the, where the wire actually plugs in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some different, I'm going to try to drill out that rivet so it's basically just a little tab, and then just do a normal, heat shrink kind of connector onto the end, and I'm going to see how that works. If not, I may look into how much it costs to just order a modern rectifier and just kind of go from there. You can see, I think they've had issues with this in the past, because the two wires that should be the green and the red that should go through this connector have long since been cut. Who knows when in the last 40 years that happened, but we can kind of work around that and try to fix this kind of hack job that's going on right now. And then assuming that works, we should be good to go. If not, then we'll have to go to the next step and look into getting a new, more modern style rectifier. So I'm going to get to work on this wiring, and then I'll bring you guys back when I have an update. Alright, so I should have the wiring pretty much figured out on this rectifier. You can see that I drilled out the rivet, so it ends up just being, kind of a normal little tab on there. So what I did was fixed the end of the melted wire, put my own little end on it and heat shrinked it and everything, and I did the same with that red wire as well. So this will just slide right on there, and it's a nice tight connection, so I don't have to worry about it falling off or anything like that. So this should be good enough. So I'm going to throw this back in there. I'm charging the battery now on the bike just to kind of get it back up to normal. And then I'll throw this on there, try to start the bike up, and then throw a multimeter on the battery and see if we are, running at 12, or I should be a little bit over 12 at idle. And then, once I give it a little bit more gas, it should go up at probably 13 or 14 volts across the battery if the charging system is actually working. So we'll try that out and see if that fixes our problem. Alright, hopefully you can hear me over the bike now, but I just got it all back put together and wanted to show. Before I was getting about 5 volts. Now here at idle, getting almost 13, 12.8, 12.9. So that's exactly what it's supposed to be putting out right now. With the headlight on. With the headlight off, it should be probably closer to 14, but it's about an amp or a volt less with the headlight on. And if you remember from my last video, go ahead and shut this off now. If you remember from my last video, I wired the headlight to be on all the time. So at idle, I'll get a little bit over 12 volts, but it'll be back up into the 13 plus, once I'm above, say, 2,000 RPMs. So now that I got the charging system fixed, I need to get back to fine tuning, which is check my ignition timing. Alright, I'm back out here. I'm working on the timing for the bike now. Since I don't have a tachometer on here, I can't really set the idle to exactly 1,000 RPMs. I could look into my actual tachometer drive. Doesn't work, so I could look into that and then hook it up to the factory tachometer. But what I decided to do is just set the timing the static way. And what that means is the bike's not actually running when I'm doing it. So I'll kind of show you guys how I do that. So I use a timing light, and timing light, really, I guess it's not technically a timing light, it's more of like a test light. Basically it's just got a bulb in it, and you guys have all seen these. It's got an alligator clip on one side, and it's just you know, got the point on the other side to check if stuff has power. So how you do it is you have to actually set 2 cylinders separately. So 1 and 4 spark at the same time, and 2 and 3 spark at the same time. And it goes, 1 is all the way over there, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So you set 1 and 4 first, which is the big main plate adjusts 1 and 4. So how you do that is you throw one side of the test light on the blue wire, which it says 1 and 4 right there on the plate. You ground to the other side, and then when you turn the crank, you just turn it clockwise here. Once you get to the little marks that say 1 and 4, as soon as it lines up, light comes on. So what that looks like inside, hopefully, I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. We'll see if I can't get you in there. It's not. You can see the little notch on the, see if I can maybe do it this way. It's not really focusing very well, but you can see the little notch on the actual crankcase there. And then there is a little, yeah, I think it's going to be too bright with this light directly on there. But there's a little TF and a 1-4 mark on there. And the little mark right in between the T and the F is lined up with the actual line on the crank. And that's how you know your end time. So hopefully at least a little bit of that comes out on video. So that's how you set 1 and 4. If that was off, you can undo these 3 Phillips head bolts, which these are or this one and this one are loose right now because I had to adjust it already. Basically what you would do is just leave the light hooked up, leave it perfectly in line, and then just adjust that plate until the light just starts to come on. And then you can tighten those 3 down, and then you go on to number 2 and number 3. So number 2 and number 3, all you need to do is move this clip over here to the yellow wire, and then do exactly the same thing. So you'll turn the crank over about 180 degrees until, boop, you see the light just came on. And I know this probably won't show up again, but now there's the same kind of mark in there, but it says 2 and 3 this time. Yeah, this is not going to show up on video very well. So it says 2 and 3 this time, with the same T and the F. Basically, once that line above the T and the F lines up with that line on the crank again, the light should come on. If not, there's a little Phillips here and a little Phillips here, and this actual point moves independently. So the main one does cylinder 1 and number 4, and then this one you can unscrew these 2 Phillips head with the little slots, and you can actually just move that little plate, and that's how you adjust 2 and 3. So 1 and 4 is the big one, 2 and 3 on there, to where the light just comes on as that line lines up. So pretty easy. All this is explained in the manual too. So if you